Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been a hot minute since I last posted. I get this question a lot from my subscribers. They always ask me how did I get from this to this. Not so much how I painted it, but they are very curious on how I get from this color to something like this, which is something completely different. So I decided to design my OC. Finally, I actually sculpted it in Nomad. And after it's done, I painted it in Procreate in the style that I wanted. And using that, I created this 3D render here with the pose. So this pose is actually Lana's pose in her music video, and I wanted to do something as a tribute. So that's how this whole thing come about. So recently I was pushing towards this color palette, which is all blue. The previous tutorial was also done with this color palette, and today I'm going to show you how I developed the new color palette for my artwork. So the first thing you will need is your original reference, which is something like this. So I have a 3D render. Yours can be a photo, an illustration, or something else that you intend to change the color palette. So the color palette changes that I'm talking about is like super complex. It's not something that can be done by just dropping in a color. So this is something that is not possible by just doing a color drop. It's something that is very complete that you have to redo. So the first thing that you would need is this app. This app is called the Img Reference app. It's actually called Img Ref app, and I'm not using the Wiz one because that one is not good enough. So to use this app, I usually launched it side by side next to Procreate. Okay, so let me just create a new atlas. So a new project is called Atlas, and then you can just drop in photos here. So let's say I have a bunch of reference here, it will just automatically drop all of them at once, and you can actually just resize all of them at one go. It's an infinite zoom, so you don't have to worry about the size. And if you want to select them, you can just multi-select them like this by dragging and then resizing. And what I like about this app is that you can tap on it and then you can do a bunch of things. You can actually flip it to check symmetry. You can turn it black and white. You can also crop it. So there are also a couple of things that you can do, which is you can use the pencil mode to, and then you can keep it that way, or you can start selecting things and making annotations that way. But the most important thing you can do with this app that complements working in Procreate is you can actually hit on this settings button here and then go to eyedropper. And once you have eyedropper, you can actually just freely pick colors in your entire atlas, which is very important. Then you can copy the code here, go over to value and hover and paste into hexadecimal here. Then you can transfer the colors here. So the reason why I'm using this app is because the reference can only hold one image unless you join all of them together, but that would be really hard to navigate. So this is a very good complement if you are working with Procreate, because you can freely just refer and pick colors at the same time. Now let me show you how I got to here. This is the reference file for this project. Like, I have notes here saying what I need to complete, and then I have references for face. I use both AI and non-AI references as well. And then here I made markings of colors that I want to incorporate into my own painting from certain parts like the hands, the hair, and then I have references from my own hand as well. So you can basically use this infinitely, and it's so useful. I even have like references for planing, like how do I want to plane the face. once you have like your references set up, and by references I mean like all the colors that you want to refer to, then you will have something like this, right? Make sure you get your sketch done, and then we can start dropping in colors. So what I did was I used this round brush. This brush is available in a lot of my brush pack. I think it's available in the portrait. So this is a very basic brush that exists everywhere, and if you go to your Procreate library, which is your default brushes for Procreate, you can probably find it living in one of the tabs. So I think it's something similar to this would work as well. So the way to test if this brush works is you just paint with it. If you press harder, it's going to give you full opacity, and if you release your pressure, it's going to just fade away. What I want is somewhat of a hard edge, so maybe get one. Yeah, like this is what I would use instead of the softer one, because you're going to be creating a color sample for your artwork, and then you'll be picking colors from there. So you don't want variables like soft edges for that. But this is Bronte from the Basics tab in Procreate library, or you can just use my round brush, which is actually another brush from the Procreate library as well. It's the same thing as long as they behave similarly. So what I want to do is I just look at my reference and I start picking colors. So first I want to pick a combo for the whole painting, and I wanted it to be black background. I don't want something blue because I want the blues on the portrait to shine out more. So let's hit on the eyedropper, and then once I have the code, I'm just gonna drop it in here, and then I'm just going to flood the entire screen. Now on another layer, I am going to just visualize big blobs. So in order to visualize big blobs, make sure you reduce the size of your canvas so that you can see it from far. So now I'm just going to drop in the blues that I like, and I think I'm just going to stick with that. So make sure I get back to my eyedropper. Make sure I have a big brush. I don't want to work small at the moment. I'm going to roughly drop in the skin tone. So I don't want something very warm. I'm making sure that I'm picking the mid-tone color, so not the shadow or the highlights. I am going to spend the time to figure out the color of my hair. So because I am working on Lana's hair, I don't want it to be very different from brown. Eventually I want it to still look like brown, so there has to be some browns in there somehow. Like for this one, this is not suitable because in the end it does not have any brown in the palette anymore, and it does not look brown anymore. But this, it still looks brown, but it's leaning towards blonde. So I know that I like the shadows to be black and blue, so that's what I'm gonna do first. I'm not being very precise because this is a color test. Okay, now I'm picking the blue, and I am going to just, I had a lot of references working with this, and I actually repainted this more than 5 times. So getting to the tutorial today was not easy because I was trying to get a new thing to happen. Okay, once I have something like this, I'm going to figure out the brown parts of the hair. Okay, after dropping it in, I'm not liking this brown because it's too yellow. I think I'm probably gonna lean towards this one. Let's see. So once I see something that I like, I am not pressing hardly to get the complete color. I am actually just using very little force and pressure on my Apple Pencil in order to just get like tones. And you see here, and here was the blue that I'm painting right now, going to brown and going back to blue, and this is something that shouldn't happen. The reason is you should always try to create gradients that go from one end to the other. So like blue to brown, it shouldn't shift back into the other temperature. And then here you can see blue to brown, right? And here blue to brown and blue again. And this shouldn't happen also because it's not balancing both ends. So if I want to balance both ends, I should actually do it this way. So it should be something like that. So now I just want to join the blue a little bit. So let's just and see how it flows later. So the clothes is white. I can pick any of these white. So I actually like this one where there was no detail in her clothes. And this one, because it's flat, I am actually using a lot of pressure to get the color down. So now we have the rough color already, and I can just clean it up. Alright, so I'm gonna get a new layer now. So for the face and the skin tone. So the first thing that I need to decide is the color of the reds, because the palette that I'm going for is very blue. The only complement is red and everything else has to be controlled. So I need to get the red that I want first, which at that time I wanted this red. So all the colors that you used before is gonna be in your history if you need them again. The thing about AR artwork is that it's very triadic color palette driven. Like I can already see here it's like yellow, blue and red. So I'm gonna shift it a little bit because I don't really like that red. My red is closer to this, which is a bit more orangey. So I'm just gonna clipping mask this so that it don't flood out. Let's get my mask out. I have a couple of mask selections that I did before and I just save it in selections so I can just use them whenever I like, because like I said, I've done this painting like more than like 5 or 6 times. I know from the back of my head exactly where I place everything already. A red base goes first because all the Terminator is where the shadows meet the midtones is always red. So get all the reds done first and everything else will follow. So once I have this done, I usually drop in the blues. So for my case, my darkest shadow here has blues, which means all my shadows has to be in blues or cool temperature. If your shadows is warm, it means that all your shadows have to be warm and your midtones and your highlights have to be cooler. So mine is the other way around. So you can do as many layers as you want, but now let's pick a blue for the skin. I'm just gonna go with something like this first. And right now it's a bit of value painting because what we want to showcase is also the values and not just the color. So as I said before, there are a couple of elements when it comes to painting. There are drawing, values, colors and finishing. So right now we are only focusing on color and values. We are not worrying about the drawing anymore or finishing. So don't worry about any of that. Just worry about getting the correct values and color. So I'm using a soft touch to drop in the blues. I'm trying to balance the blue for both sides. Probably gonna have blue here but not touching this. Easy. So now going back to the red layer, we are going to drop in the oranges. So the oranges easy, or the yellows. The difficult part is finding the orange that is suitable. But because we're painting with very low pressure, it's not going to be a problem. You're basically just trying to find color combos that is nice. After that, usually I would do the eyes. I would do it on a separate layer and just pick a cool color somewhere first and drop it in. I don't usually worry a lot about the eye color, but the pupil color is something I would mess around with. Like I just drop the color in and then I just push and see what color I like. Then after that, I got the colors for her brow, which I've already decided earlier on. what color I want. Like, I've decided on a couple of colors already for certain areas, but there were also areas where I just went in blind, and which is the reason why I needed this layer done. Okay, now that's done, I am going to focus on the flowers, which is one of the main focus of this painting. So I really wanted this kind of faded out effect. So I'm just gonna pick a couple of flowers to give that effect. So I've decided that some of them would go to purple, which is this one, and then the rest would go to blue, and then the rest would go to turquoise. So once I have the rough color relationship here already, I'm just going to drop in whatever that is in between, and at the end of the day, I ended up with something like this. So this was my first iteration, and at that time the hand was placed elsewhere. Using this image, I just exported it out as PNG, and then I loaded it into the reference, which allows me to pick colors from here and repaint the entire portrait that way. So once you have this here, it's quite easy to proceed because you can use whatever workflow that you are comfortable with, and then just paint your painting like usual. And if you see here, there's a lot more things going on compared to here. Like if you see the background is just black, but here there are a lot of colors going on. So the colors can stay black, but I actually use a lot of textures to build the background. So I'm actually using the Fat Nebula brush. I would pick any of the dark colors and I just drop in a little bit to get like shades of subtle colors, and then I will go to the color palette here and push it to get other colors and drop that in as well. If I drop it in and it looks like crazy, I will actually just dial down the saturation. Yeah, and then it's way too bright now. So whatever color you drop in, it has to be similar value to your intended color here. Like I can even drop in browns as long as it's in the same values. So make sure you watch part 1 and 2 if you haven't already, in order to learn more about color theory. So this was how I control the color but still add more variations to it. And then if you see here, I only have very simple values, like it was just the background with one shadow, one highlight. So just 3 values was enough for the background, because the background is not something that is important. Then certain flowers have the same treatment. Like this has very limited values, but if you look carefully here, there's something off with some of the elements, like this flower here, the hair, the nose, inside of the lips, and the hands. So this was the artwork before I did those funny things. So this was the final one. Like these flowers here and the hair, everything all looks very normal. So I'm going to show you exactly how I changed that. So let's say you've completed your painting already and you want something to glow. So just make sure that you copy your canvas first, paste it so that you have a final output here. And now what you can do is you can actually just invert it. So once you've inverted it, everything became the opposite. Like blue become yellow, dark become light, light becomes dark. We want it to flip, but we want the color to remain. So you can use the hue, saturation, and brightness tool. Change the hue back all the way here. So when you change it back all the way there, you can tell that it actually shifted the hue back to the same. Like the blue became the blue again, and the reds become the red again. It's just the value that's flipped right now. So once you have something like this, I can actually go to curves. So you can see here for this flower, let me just turn it off. So here I've applied a mask and it's black, which means it's hiding everything on this layer. And if I paint on this layer with white, it's going to show back the inverted layer. So I'm just going to pick a brush and reveal certain parts. So I actually painted certain petals here so that it looks like it's glowing. Then now it looks like that already, right? You see this part is glowing. So I inverted the nose shadow and also the insides of the lips, this flower as well. So once it's inverted, it's gonna glow and it looks kind of ethereal. But here it's gonna be quite impossible for me to invert because the skin tone was so light it became black. So it's gonna be easier to do this whole process if you still have your layers intact. Like I can just go back to my fingers. So I just found the layer that I can invert. I am going to invert it, shift the color and make sure it's bright and saturate. So once I have something like this, it's easy to touch up. So for the hair, it's a lot more complicated how I did the whole inverting process. I basically had this color first picked from somewhere else. So I knew I wanted everything to be inverted, and then I went to the relevant hair. Okay, I dropped this blue in. And after that, because my layers were all separated by values, I can just pick one, duplicate it, and invert it. And then after that, I could go in and find more layers to invert. Every time I invert, I would reset back the color to be the original. So this was how I did it. I would go into every single layer and touch up all the details to get the result that I want. And then finally, I would end up with something like that. So this is a very short tutorial. I just wanted to share how I got from a normal color reference to something that is very unique. So you can try this out and let me know if you have any questions. I'll answer them when I see them. So I'll see you next time. Bye!